First, Mr. President, a few observations about Obamacare. It may not have existed in the English language just a few years ago, but in short order, it's become a byword for broken promises and almost cartoonish inefficiency. It's no wonder why. You can keep your plan. You can keep your doctor. Premiums will go down. The law will create millions of jobs. We knew the promises wouldn't hold up. Many of us said so. One even earned the dubious distinction of being declared the lie of the year. And that's why it's so hard to trust much of what the Obama administration claims about Obamacare these days. Like back in December, when administration officials issued another promise that they'd make sure that any taxpayer-funded Obamacare subsidies would go only to enrollees who'd actually qualified for them under the law. We wanted this assurance not only because so many other promises had been broken, we wanted it because eligibility verification is so important. Middle-class taxpayers are feeling enough pain from this law already. They shouldn't have to subsidize inaccurate or even fraudulent Obamacare claims on top of all the rest. So I've helped pass a law that required a nonpartisan watchdog to keep an eye on the procedures that the administration claimed would protect taxpayers, to see how they were working, and then report back to us, to Congress. Well, last week, that watchdog, the Inspector General, issued the first two reports on the issue. And it turns out we were pretty correct to be worried. The Inspector General concluded that the administration was often ineffective at verifying such basic details about Obamacare enrollees as their citizen status, their income, their Social Security number, and whether or not they were even eligible to purchase Obamacare in the first place. The administration, the IG reported, didn't even follow its own eligibility verification procedures in many cases. And that wasn't all. The IG also discovered nearly 3 million inconsistencies in the information Obamacare enrollees provided in their applications, nearly 90% of which couldn't even be resolved because the necessary software wasn't even operational. It's completely ridiculous. And the administration is still struggling just to get a handle on the problem. Computer systems that should have been ready to go last October have not been built yet. It's the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a Leslie Nielsen movie, not in real life. Worse still, administration officials are now indicating that they're going to just keep chugging ahead with their deeply flawed verification practices, even after everything the government's own watchdog uncovered. Many individuals enrolled with the current flawed enrollment process will automatically be enrolled for the same taxpayer subsidies next year. They're defiant in the face of all this. Well, this is precisely the kind of flippant attitude that's so infuriating to many of our constituents. Many of us predicted that these kinds of problems would be the likely outcome of giving government such expansive power over a huge segment of our economy. Of course, you're going to have massive inefficiency and probable fraud and migraines for middle-class families that already have enough to deal with. Of course, you're going to see all this. It seems inevitable. That's why Republicans say we need to start over with actual health care reform that can actually lower costs and increase the quality of care without resorting to this tired, sort of government-centric approach. Obamacare is built upon the intellectually lazy idea that we can simply legislate a desirable outcome into existence, that we can tell a hulking federal bureaucracy to simply bureaucratize affordable health care into being. Unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. Reality always intervenes. Just as we've been seeing with the pain of Obamacare these past few years, pain that will only continue until Washington Democrats join us to enact a serious bipartisan solution that actually addresses many of our health care challenges and dispenses with the failed policies of this administration. And yet, that's exactly the opposite of what we've seen from our friends on the other side so far. Instead of working with us to solve massive problems like the ones the Inspector General identified, Democrats here in Washington are simply hiding from the issue altogether. They're trying to change the subject, even hinting at it prompts the Democratic majority to shut down the legislative process altogether. They cancel committee markups, they block votes and amendments. They won't allow the Senate to consider numerous bipartisan House-passed bills that would address some of Obamacare's most glaring problems. Even when a bipartisan group proposes a plan to address a flaw in the law that's reducing incomes for working families, they reject it. Instead, they schedule show votes designed to inflame one group or another. As for the president, he's traveling around the country this week to give campaign speeches, not working with Congress to help middle-class families struggling under the weight of his policies. So the Democratic plan seems to be double down on the mess they've created and to hope that Americans can be distracted enough to forget about it come November. Well, if that's the plan, not going to work. Middle-class Americans know who's been standing by their side throughout this entire Obamacare fiasco. They know who's been standing against them, serving as a shield for the president and the hard left. It's not too late for Democrats here in Washington to work with Republicans to address the massive problem they created. And if they truly care about the millions they've hurt in this country already with this law, it's time to do just that.